Okay.
Yep.
Hey, Mark, can you hear us okay?
I can, yeah, thank you.
All right. Well, if you are ready to get started, we can just start with questions, and we can start with Adam Teicher. Go ahead, Adam.
Hey, Mark, how you doing today?
I'm well. Adam, how are you?
Good, thank you. Couple things, Mark. What is it about Arrowhead or the Chiefs or Kansas City where the Chiefs felt comfortable selling tickets to the games where so many NFL teams and other pro sports teams haven't felt comfortable, at least to this point? And also, at 22% of capacity, how many tickets is that exactly?
Let me take that backwards or forward. So roughly 16,000 tickets out of 75 or so that we typically would have. I think what makes us comfortable is our plan. And I'm late, and I apologize for being late. I was on a league call, and we were talking about that, and I was asked to present to the league on our plan and our success this past Saturday, and our plan for Saturday, and our plan for Thursday for opening kickoff. And, we are very confident in our plan. We've said this numerous times, and we'll say it again, and we will reiterate it, that our plan is only as good as compliance and the following of directions, following of the protocol for our staff, for our players, for our coaches, for our fans. It's critical that everybody follow the protocols. But if they do, we feel pretty confident that we can do this. We're not alone. We are definitely in the minority when you look across the league. I think there are 5 or 6 teams that are going to go with tickets and fans in the stands for the first week, and then I know 6 to 10 are contemplating after week 2 or 3, and then beyond. So we take the responsibility very seriously. We understand, and I said this on the call that I was on earlier, we understand that, we've got to get this right. And we've got to be very diligent in our processes and our protocols in order to be successful, in order to have another game with fans. And we know that other teams and other leagues are going to be looking at us. I would also say we're not alone in sports, right? Last night, Sporting here in Kansas City hosted fans successfully, as far as I've heard. And other teams in other markets are hosting fans. So we're hopeful. We're confident in the plan. And we appreciate all the support we've gotten from medical experts who helped us put that plan together.
Let's go to Herbie Teope. Go ahead, Herbie.
Hey, Mark, thank you so much for taking a moment to chat with us. You mentioned discipline for folks, but there's also that human element that you always have to concern yourself with. So what kind of system is in place to ensure that the people who are charged to ensure that the safety policies are being followed are actively identifying and correcting violations, such as not wearing a mask when you're inside the stadium?
Yeah, for those of you who are at the stadium, I hope you'll agree with this statement. In talking with Dr. Archer about what he has heard about our event last Saturday, protocols were followed. I was very impressed with our fans and their ability and their compliance with putting on their mask as soon as they are approaching someone. I was very impressed that parking and in the tailgate area, they were wearing masks for the most part. And this is not an excuse, and I want to be crystal clear on this. We have to do a lot more, to your question, to continue to communicate, to make people aware that it's really important, even in your seats, to wear your mask. But for all of us in Kansas City, I used this example with Dr. Sills from the NFL the other day, and he actually fed it back to me. It's the exact same situation in Nashville. If you think about our experience over the last few months, where we're going out to restaurants and we're actually interacting in public, we're going to schools. My experience this past weekend in the plaza going to a restaurant with my wife is very consistent with our experience across any sort of public interaction. As soon as we get out of the car, we put our mask on. And when we're traversing to the restaurant, we put our mask on. We see the hostess to get our seat, where we have our mask on. We walk to our table, we have our mask on. We sit down at a table, we take our mask off. And we don't put it back on in between eating and drinking, right? So our normal process is that. And I think that's one of the things that came across on Saturday was, I talked to a few of our season ticket members, and I said, I need to enforce this. I need to reinforce the importance of wearing the mask in the stands. And the dad looked at me and said, Mark, I wore the mask everywhere you told me to. I'm sitting in a seat, there's no one within 10 feet of me, and I'm with my family who I sleep with and eat with and spend all my time with without a mask on. I appreciate it, but it's 95 degrees and hot. I took my mask off for a minute. And I said, look, I hear you loud and clear. But as we get more people in, as we're closer together, we have more interactions, more cross traffic. We all have to be disciplined. And that's really where we are. So to your question on enforcement, we'll have more people, we'll have more staff, we'll have more messaging. You'll see some stuff this Saturday, which is very in your face signage. You know, we're going to walk up and down aisles with a little sign that says, hey, wear your mask, even if you're sitting. So we got a lot to learn. We got a lot to work through. And we need a lot of cooperation from our fans to make this successful.
Let's go to Nate Taylor. Go ahead, Nate.
Hello, Mark. Thanks for doing this again. I have two questions as well. For Dallas FC's first game, the team made a decision to make a gesture during the national anthem. They received booing from fans. I'm just wondering how that sort of situation has an impact on the Chiefs if players want to make a similar gesture before, during, or after the national anthem. And then secondly, to go to what you guys have done with indigenous people and trying to understand how to better position the organization in the correct manner. I think you mentioned earlier how a Purple Heart was sort of a denomination in terms of understanding the situation. Just what did you learn yourself from those communications? And then what would you try to express to fans who may also not follow that rule if they come to the games this season?
Okay, two very different angles on questions. So the first one, I would say we learned a lot from the FC Dallas situation. I think everyone across sports learned a lot from that situation. And we take all that learning into what we're talking about here. I think to your second question about the American Indian and what I've learned, I'd say I've been a bit redundant on this, so I apologize, but we've been doing this for 6.5 years. This isn't a new issue for us. And I shared some personal stories of, the first few meetings, Johnny Leonard reached out to me and said, can we have coffee? And he explained sort of, here's how this is viewed and here are some of the issues that we should be discussing. We set up a larger meeting with people and got into the depth of that. And I walked away from that first meeting, a little bit embarrassed about my lack of knowledge and a little bit inspired about if you have the knowledge, it becomes pretty clear. Now, everybody's going to have opinions on all these issues, and I respect that. But for me personally, I didn't understand what a headdress or a war bonnet was. I didn't understand what it represented. And to have an American Indian explain the sacredness of that and how every single feather is earned and what it means in their community, it's a pretty easy answer. Let's educate people. Let's share that story. Let's create awareness around that. And the great thing about our working group is that there's good discussion about it. Well, how do we do that? And then how do we have set a realistic goal? And the realistic goal we had was, if we can just explain this to a fan we see in the parking lot who's wearing a headdress, we feel confident we can convert them into, you can paint your face, you can wear a crazy hat, you can wear a wig, you can wear a headband, you can wear jewelry, you can create your own character, do all that, be a fan. But understand, just throwing the headdress on because you bought it at a 5 and dime store and think it's cool, it's not.
Let's go to Blair Kirchhoff. Go ahead, Blair.
Hi, Mark. And just following up on that, you all, I guess last week when you announced the headdress and the face painting, you also said that you were looking at the Arrowhead chop as well. And I'm just wondering what goes into those discussions.
Yeah, along the same lines of the discussion we had around headdress and war bonnet and face paint, just education. Again, redundant on the story, but the drum came back to Arrowhead as part of trying to bring the traditions and honoring the traditions that were started in municipal. We've all seen, many of us have seen that black and white footage of cheerleaders banging the drum as the players came down the walkway through the stands. in municipal. And we were trying to figure out ways that we could bring that back. Again, a little bit embarrassed and inspired that we didn't realize the sacred position of the drum in the American Indian culture. When that was explained to us, we went to them and said, okay, how do we make this work? What are our options? What are the things that we can do? And that's where they came up with the idea and shared with us the idea of blessing of the four directions, blessing the drum itself, acknowledging what it is, and creating, again, awareness and education. So the drum has become a very big part of the Arrowhead experience. It's become a very big part of the opening of our games. We started to work and started some discussions about trying again to educate and make people aware of the sacred position of the drum in the American Indian culture, but also that it's seen as sort of the heartbeat of that culture. And when you hear things like that, it's easy to latch onto that and say, okay, it's kind of the heartbeat of the stadium too. And we can debate that, right? People can argue otherwise, but it is a way to unify our fans. It is a way to bring people together at that moment and other moments throughout the game. So how do we do that? And how do we do it in a respectful way? And that's what we're working on right now. I think one of the best things that has come out of this for us as an organization and the groups that we are working with is an understanding that it's going to take some time. This isn't overnight. These aren't things that we're going to be able to successfully change one way or the other overnight. And we're going to continue to work on that. And that's the communication we had around the drum.
Go to Darren Smith. Go ahead, Darren.
Okay, I might ask you to remind me of one of those questions in there, but let me start with voter registration. And I probably disagree with you that it's not necessary in other communities, because I think voter registration and voter engagement, I personally believe is very important. And the people exercising their right to vote, I personally believe is very important. To your question of what we're doing and how we're doing it. So I think Patrick, Tyron, others, really proud. I personally, and I know as an organization, we're really proud to be associated with those guys in their efforts. I appreciate that they mentioned that we've had those discussions and I've been in those discussions. We have some plans to do things in and around this election that are going to be focused on, number one, awareness of the importance of voting. Number two, creating awareness of the ways people can register to vote, the ways people can engage, and doing that through the experts in that space. Rise to Vote, somebody the league is working with, somebody we are actively working with today. They've met with us as an organization. They're met with our players. They're going to meet with our staff as well as our stadium staff to make sure that everybody's aware of the opportunities they have to register to vote and to vote. To your question on 3rd and 5th District, I think one of the most compelling things that we can do to address that directly is we've got a plan right now, which is not final. And I'll share with you all that we're committed to doing it, but it has some challenges. We want to make Arrowhead a polling location. We want to create an opportunity for people to come to Arrowhead and vote. And in addition to that, with the awareness, you're going to see a lot of things around the highest points of awareness for us as an organization that are going to be focused on voting and the awareness of voting and ways to vote. One of the reasons that I personally, and I think this organization believes that that's a platform that we need to get behind, is the beauty of the vote. You can have different opinions. You can vote for different people, but vote. And that's really what we're trying to engage in. To your question on Hy-Vee, we've had a lot of discussions about Hy-Vee and their expansion plans. I honestly don't have a specific answer for you on whether they've looked at those districts. We've been working for many years since I've gotten here with leaders in the city on the food desert issue and how do we create more opportunities to create healthy options within those communities. And your first question was about, as you put it, price gouging. So let me just say this on that issue, because I've seen some reports on it. What we did in putting together our plan for how do we take a stadium from 76,000 seats down to 16,000 seats and equally and fairly distribute those tickets to our season ticket members. As you can imagine, when you do the math, it's pretty quickly, you can't. So what we did was we said all season ticket members will have the opportunity to move their tickets to 21. There'll be benefits and incentives to do that. We've locked in their pricing, flat pricing for next year. They have the opportunity to win free tickets to games. There are a lot of different benefits that are in there. Our season ticket sales staff has done a great job on. And then we sat down and said, how do we make this fair and equitable in terms of the tickets we do have? On the pricing issue, in May, right around May when our schedule was released, we announced our single game ticket pricing. In May, when we announced those prices, we were assuming we were going to have 76,000 people in the stadium. And those prices were based on a lot of very complicated algorithms and data that we use to understand the market and understand what the value of those tickets are in this market. Before we reduced to 16,000 seats, before we went through any of these changes, we set those prices. We haven't changed those prices. They're exactly what they were. Those are single game prices, and they're based on the value of those tickets in the marketplace. I know there's been a lot, and we completely understand and expected the response because it is a significant jump. Number one, that's the value of having a season ticket plan. You have the benefit of those prices, those ticket prices being much below market value, but you're committed to the full season. The single game option gives you the option to pay a little more, in some cases a lot more, because you're buying one game. So you're not obligated to buy the full season. You're buying one game and you're paying what the market rate is. Now, I defend the market rate, and I think most of you who are in this, who are interested in this issue, probably have already done the research. We're pretty good from a data standpoint, an algorithm standpoint, and our team of understanding what the ticket's really worth and being below that number. So even though, again, acknowledging that there's significant jumps, a person who buys a ticket to our Houston Texans game today at the price that we're selling it at can put that in the secondary market that minute and make more money, hundreds of dollars more based on their location. In some cases, a $400 ticket is going for $1,000 on the secondary marketplace. So what we're trying to do is be fair, but represent the market.
Let's go to Therese Paler. Go ahead, Therese.
Hey, Mark, how you doing? Thank you for doing this.
Sure.
Just kind of following up on the pricing model. How have sales been going for you guys? I feel like I ask you that every year, but with these prices being above the norm, like how have sales been going? And one more thing, the passion of your fans, does it kind of, wherever it's at, does that kind of speak to that as well, the passion of your fans?
Well, to answer your first part of the question of how sales have gone exactly as we expected, I get the opportunity to sit up here and say things like that, but it's really our sales team. Tyler Kirby, Tyler Epp, the people who are in that department for us. They really know their business. And when you look at what the projections are going to be, and as you can imagine, Therese, you and I have had enough discussions to know kind of how I'm wired on these things. So there's a pretty high expectation, a pretty high bar on exactly where we're going to be and how we're going to be, and our projections have to be right. We're exactly where we thought we were going to be. The demand is, it's an interesting way of doing it because we're doing it by tenure, going back to the point of fairness. We had to figure out a way to give every single one of our season ticket members an opportunity, but we've had longer tenured and shorter tenured season ticket members. So we've gone in waves and allowed the longest tenured season ticket members the opportunity to buy first, then the next, and then the next. And we're probably, I won't have the exact, but we're probably only 30% through our season ticket members. And the interesting part for me, at least, in looking at the data, is you've got a lot of people, longer tenured season ticket members. Again, it's a mix, but if you look at demographically, you could have some people who may be medically challenged, may have conditions, may be in our older demographic, and may be less likely to want to come to a game where they've got to go through all these protocols and do all these things. We believe that as we get, our projections show that as we get closer and to the newer tenured season ticket members, the percentage of people who buy within those pods are going to be much higher. But we really set out, our model set out a goal, which is going to be tough to achieve, but we think we're going to get there, that every single season ticket member, whether you're a 50-year plus season ticket member, or whether you signed on with us last year for the first year, will have the opportunity to purchase tickets to games this year. When you're talking about 17,000 tickets, 16,000 tickets, it's a tough math to figure out, but we feel like we're trending towards that.
All right, guys, we've got time for a few more questions. Let's go with Sam Mellinger next. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Mark, thanks for doing this. With the pricing, I just want to follow up on something. I know your focus is the health part of it, right? Of, getting the protocols in place and all that. But there has to be a financial part of this too. I'm just wondering, was there a sort of a standard that you guys had to hit on, making this worth it, for lack of a better term, making sure that you would have enough money to make this worth it?
Yeah, I know that question has been out there nationally as well as locally. The numbers don't pencil out. I mean, you can't really make the numbers work when you're talking about that amount of tickets. So this isn't about that. This is about creating an experience and continuing the experience at Arrowhead, giving our fans the opportunity to be there for some really special moments. To some, it may sound a little bit contrived, but honestly, we're raising a banner on September 10th, and we want our fans to be part of that. We're really struggling with the fact that only 16,000 are going to be able to be a part of that in live and in person, but that's a lifelong memory, and it's going to be different. It's not going to be exactly what we wanted, but it is something that was really important to us as a franchise. And I will speak for the Hunt family on that. I mean, that was a big driver on figuring out a way to get our fans in safely. They need to be part of this, and that's been a big driver for us as a business.
Let's go to Sam McDowell. Go ahead, Sam.
Hey, Mark, thanks for doing this. Just to take from your leadoff thing about the fans, you mentioned that it's going to take compliance to make this work. What's sort of the process of enforceability for those that aren't being compliant in the stadium?
Yeah, so we're going to continue to learn and continue to try to understand how we can better enforce that. As again, I'll cite that you'll see some new things this weekend with signage and with more staffing focused on that issue, specifically walking up and down the aisles, making sure they're just reminding people to put their masks on. We don't want to be in a situation where we're, evicting someone or arresting someone or anything like that. But we think that we have enough systems, enough communication in place where we can enforce that it's to protect all of us. And, we can get into some science conversations about, distance and volume. And, one of the biggest things we have to our advantage is we're an outdoor stadium. But we also have to listen to the experts, and the experts are telling us that, yeah, you're an outdoor stadium, but you're not just sitting and eating dinner. You're standing and cheering and yelling and screaming. And those are all things that factor into the risks associated. And those risks are significantly decreased if you wear a mask. So those are the kind of things we're going to be focused on.
Close it out with Surin Petro. Go ahead, Surin.
Mark, thank you for the time. Like everyone said, we do appreciate you taking the time out today. I'm curious, just specifically, you touched a little bit on the subject of, when the question was asked about the Dallas soccer team and kind of the reaction. I spoke with one reporter the other day who said that he has spoken with the Players Association and that they are definitely planning demonstrations, that they are coming. Assuming that's the case, are you going to be working with them to be a part of that demonstration? We had Bill O'Brien in Houston say he will be kneeling with his players. Are the Chiefs, coaching staff, the organization, Clark Hunt, working actively to be a part of the demonstration, or is it simply going to be a case where you stand back and say, okay, whatever you guys want to do it?
Yeah, I'd go back to some of the things we said when all of this started to become as big an issue as it's become. And it's definitely something that needs to be addressed, and it's definitely something that needs our attention. If you go back to end of May, beginning of June, we as an organization, we sat and talked about this as an organization, players, coaches, football operations staff, our own executive staff. And we made a decision to shut our website down and just say right now, the important thing is to really, one of our principles, unite our community. Unity is more important now than ever. And we need to continue to do that. And that's been our theme. When the players video came out early on in this process, I was really proud to be part of the team that said, we got to support this. We got to go out with a statement. We're the first statement. I believe we're the first team in the National Football League to respond to that video. And I'm most proud of the message we sent that night. And it was late at night, and it was Clark, myself, and a few others on a phone call just saying, the message we want people to hear and the message we want our players to hear is that we love and support them. And we're part of a family. Just like any family, there are passions on all sides. And what we've said is, in discussions that I've been in with our players, with Clark and with Coach and with Brett and with others, let's love each other, let's support each other, and let's respect each other. And that's really what we're going to continue to do. We're going to meet and have more discussions about this, and you'll be hearing more from us as we go. But that's really the approach that we take to issues like this.
Mark, we appreciate your time today. Thank you.
Thanks, guys. Appreciate it. Hope to see you guys soon.